program. Recall that in late 2018, the president assented to the Persons with Disability Act, which made certain provisions, some of which we are going to briefly highlight. Now, first of all, discrimination against persons with disability attracts 100,000 naira fine or at least 6 months imprisonment. Also, in that act, passed into law, there's a prohibition in public transport, that is prohibition in discrimination against persons with disability in public transportation systems, talking about seaports, railways, airports, motor parks, and all of that. One of the provisions also is that 5% employment opportunity should be given with persons living with disability in every organization. And then persons with disability also have the right to file lawsuits against defaulters, against people who they consider defaulters of the provisions of that law. We also have a 5-year transitional period to modify public structures in favor of persons living with disabilities. So, for instance, where you have staircases and then there's no provision for persons with wheelchairs, it is expected that that building is modified to accommodate people with disability. Also, there's also the issue about conformity of building plans, before approval. So before you get approval for raising any structure in Nigeria, you are supposed to show and demonstrate that your building is taking into consideration persons living with disability before you get approval. Also, defaulters of building codes are to be fined 1 million naira or 2 years imprisonment, establishment of commission for persons with disability to be headed by an executive secretary. These are some of the provisions of that law passed about 2 years now, or I would say almost 3 years, in place. Now, we have in the studio a lucky pastor, visually impaired person. He is from Inclusive Friends Association, and he'll be talking to us, about these, especially 5% employment for persons living with disability. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's begin with your person, lucky pastor. When I heard the name, it sounds unique because we know pastor to be a title.
Oh yeah.
Not a name.
Oh yeah. This is a very common question I answer every day, especially when I go to a new place. People want to know, you're a lucky pastor. Sometimes they want to, they want to change it and say, okay, Pastor Lucky. But I insist it's Lucky Pastor. That's because Pastor is actually my surname. How did the story go? I think my father was giving birth in the church, and his parents decided to call him Pastor.
Wow, interesting.
So that's how the day came about.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Lucky pastor. A pastor who is lucky.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. Anyways, that's on the side. Now let's talk about these persons with disability law. Passed some time ago.
Okay.
How far, in your view, have we gone in terms of implementation of some of the provisions of that law?
Well, before I proceed, let me just say this quickly. The fact that after the act was passed, a commission was established to implement these acts. I think it's something to really commend. And that's being put in place. I think right now a large part of the responsibility lies in the hands of the commission to ensure that these things are these provisions in the act are well implemented. Then, to answer your question, I wouldn't say they are well implemented at the moment, because in so many areas, so many of these provisions are still lagging behind. For instance, the discrimination you mentioned. Persons with disability are still being discriminated, even when they try to visit public places, on the road, even the transport system. In virtually every sector of the of Nigeria system, discrimination is still found. Okay, so I wouldn't say the implementation is good, but then I think the commission being put in place, it's a good place to start from in implementing these provisions.
Okay, I think I saw, a statement where Ekiti State said that it has implemented 51%, employment for people, with disabilities. Do you have anything, in that regard?
Yeah, I read that not quite long. I read about that. Although that's Ekiti State. Well, I don't live in Ekiti State, but then that brings me to another issue. There is one particular issue we have in Nigeria, which is the issue of statistics. So most of the time we talk about things that have been implemented, people that have been given this, given that, but in most cases we really do not have accurate numbers. We really don't have accurate data on these things. So oftentimes we say we have 30 million persons with disability in Nigeria, 31 million persons with disability in Nigeria, but then how many persons with disability are duly employed in Nigeria? I don't think we have the statistics, and without this data, it is really very difficult for us to know if we are doing well or we are not doing well. If the commission is actually fighting, or agencies, departments and ministries are actually doing their best to ensure that the 5% is being implemented. So talking about the Ekiti story, I wouldn't know how far the governor or the state has gone in implementing these 5% or the 51% they are trying to claim. But then I think we need statistics in Nigeria to enable us to know how well we have done and how well we still need to do in issues like this.
All right. Now, in terms of government's own employment and recruitment, would you say that government has taken the lead in terms of implementing some of these provisions by, employing some persons with disability? And how exactly where does the commission, for instance, comes in here? The role that the commission plays in ensuring that, that is, enforced.
Okay. Before this act was passed or was accepted by the president, we've had persons with disability gaining employment in different sectors. Now, after the bill was passed, we still have had stories of persons with disability being employed. Okay, but talking about the 5%, I would not say that 5% is really followed as enacted in the act. Now, the reason is, first of all, employment in Nigeria, you and I know, is a very difficult thing. As a matter of fact, people get employed in Nigeria based on the connection they have. Just like the popular saying, long legs, So when, for instance, there is a recruitment going on in a particular agency, and they already know the people they want to employ, then you, as a person with disability, innocently applies for that position, you're not likely to get it because you did not go through the long legs. Okay, so now the issue of employment in general in Nigeria is a very difficult thing. So you need to know someone who knows someone in the system to enable you get a place in that organization. So how many persons with disability would have such connections? They would want to go through merits, but then merits to a large extent in Nigeria do not work anymore because this system is polluted to a greater extent. So people who have the connections might get the employment. But if we look at the provision of 5% and saying if this thing is really being followed the way it is written, I would say no, we are still very, very far behind in that area.
Okay, so would you say there is enough, education and advocacy in regards with the provision, of the act, which is also prompting the way, people are responding, to some of the provisions of this?
Yeah, I would say we have many NGOs who are really doing their best on the part of the government. I don't think there is enough awareness, there is enough education to these effects. But there are a lot of non-governmental NGOs who are really doing their best, like IFA, for instance. If you check, I'm wearing a shirt, but we are doing an advocacy program in IFA currently, trying to sensitize the public about disability-based violence, which also includes this lack of employment we're talking about. Because the system is so structured in a way that people with disability find it difficult to fit in, like getting a job. I know all about getting a job, really. When you get a job, are there provisions, are there things put in place to enable you function in that office? Because we might say, okay, give them 5%, and they are given. When they get the job, what would they do? Are they giving that provision? Are they giving that enabling environment to really excel or do what they should do as people working in an organization? So all of these are the things you consider, because disability really is not all about the health condition. It's sometimes, in fact, in most times, extends to societal attitude towards the person living with disability. For instance, if you recruit a soldier and say go and fight insurgency, and this soldier goes to the field without a gun, without ammunition, automatically the system has already disabled the soldier from carrying out his duties. So same thing applies. When you give a person with disability a job, you need to also provide the enabling environment for him or her to be able to carry out that assignment you are giving them. Okay. And that includes what we call inclusive budgeting. When you're budgeting for an organization, you should have this in mind, that okay, we're going to have people with disability in our organization, so we need to provide things that will enable them function in this organization. So all of these things are the things needed to make this a reality in Nigeria. So I would say really that the education for the side of the non-governmental organization is fine. We are doing our best to make sure that this thing goes around. But I think the government still need to be involved in creating awareness and educating the public about these things and how they should implement them.
All right. Now, the provision, one of the provision of the law is that it empowers persons with disability to go to court and take defaulters to court. So, if, for instance, you're applying for a job and you believe you have all the merits and all of that, for some reasons, you are discriminated against, you can approach the court and say, hey, I have applied for this job and I'm being discriminated against. How much of that have you done, or have we seen, from FIA or IFA people you work with?
Okay, let me first of all ask this question. If an individual goes for an interview in a government organization, for instance, say NNPC or say NCC or any of these government organizations, okay? First of all, the question would be, what would be your evidence to show that you merited this job and you were not given? Is the recruitment process that open for you to know that you actually did very well but you were not given the job? So you see, there is actually a setback when it comes to that. The other day, Federal Road Safety or one of these paramilitary posted an advert for recruitment and clearly stated that persons with disability are not allowed to apply. And I think Citizens for Center for Citizens with Disability took it up and took them to court. Really, I don't even know how that case ended, because they've already from the beginning discriminated against persons with disability. But what I'm saying is, it is really difficult to really say you want to stand up and go and say, okay, you were discriminated by not getting a job in a particular organization, because the process is not open for you to really know how well you did that made it impossible for you to get a job. So I think this is where the commission comes in. Okay, so whenever there is a recruitment anywhere, what I expect is that the commission should be fully involved, so that at the end of the recruitment, they can get statistics and say, okay, so amount of persons were recruited in this organization this year or so time, and out of the 500 100 persons that were recruited, 5 persons or 20 persons are persons with disability. This will help the system to be transparent. But if you say an individual should just stand up and take the case to court and say, I was discriminated, but I didn't get a job I merited, it will be very difficult. But then, which individual really can fight against an organization? So all of these things, you and I know the court, the judiciary system in Nigeria in most times it does not really favor the ordinary person.
Yeah, so yes, it may be difficult, on individual basis, right? But then you have civil society organizations,
of course,
NGOs, and organizations like yours. Have you considered, maybe adopting something like that?
Of course, of course. When we are also open to cases like this. So we always make it clear that whenever there is a such case of discrimination, that you have been discriminated, okay, you can as well reach out to IFA and they will take it up from there. So that is in place already. But I'm only saying this because many individuals get discouraged when they look at the system and how things are being done, okay. But then we are still saying that the commission is there, IFA and other organizations, they are there. You can easily run out to and lay your complaints, let them know how the areas you've been discriminated, and they'll come in.
Okay, so talk to us about also areas of collaboration between this commission and groups like yours, IFA and other civil society organization that wants to protect the interests of people with disability. How is that collaboration going, if there's any?
Well, for one, I don't work with the commission, and I really cannot say much about the relationship within the commission and other organizations to say how well it's really going, because like I said, I don't work with the commission, so I don't really know how many organizations have written to them for partnership, how many organizations have tried to collaborate with them in order to make these things possible. But then I want to believe that the commission should be open to people or organizations who are willing to carry out such collaborations and make sure that the provisions of the Act are well implemented.
So now, as a person, living with disabilities, what are some of the strategies you advocate for, to government to put in place?
First of all, I would say that I remember I said at the beginning that setting up the commission is a very beautiful step and a very good thing the government has done. Now, it's not left for the commission. As a matter of fact, the ES, which is executive secretary of that commission, is a person with disability. So he understands the pain, okay? These challenges we are facing, he understands. So I expect that the commission, having been established by the government, should be able to make sure we're talking about employment. And I mentioned that this commission should be involved in recruitment in different government organizations, so that whenever there is something going wrongly, there will be a clearer picture. You would know that, okay, yes, something is going on wrongly here, because since the head of this organization is a person with disability, and if we cannot carry out this thing with all manner of passion, then it means we are not even helping ourselves as persons with disability. Because it will be like you've been given the opportunity to help yourself, but you're not helping yourself. So I really expect that the commission, having been set, should be given a free hand to operate, so that they can carry out their duties and make sure that organizations, individuals, whatever, they carry out the provisions in the Act judiciously, so that there will be no issue of people still crying here and there, no employment, no social inclusion, and all of that. So I will still say it again, that the commission is a very good start, but then they should be given free hand to operate.
All right. Now, what are some of the impediments, that you experience in public places? Because yes, some of the provision is that public buildings, should be modified and be raised in such a way that it accommodates persons with disability. What are some of the things that are missing, that you see in our public structures, and what are the things that you look out for and what you expect?
Well, the government gave 5 years transition period for buildings to make sure they are accessible and all of that. So currently, I still say that there are a lot of buildings that are inaccessible by persons with disability. Church buildings, public buildings, and all that. There are some buildings you would go, maybe no provision of the elevator even, so you have to climb the staircase. So when someone on a wheelchair gets to that environment, he or she would find it difficult to access. So in this area, there's still a very big challenge. Now, talking about our road networks, there are areas in Abuja, for instance, that when I get as a visually impaired person, I'll be so stranded. I'll be so stranded to the point that I will have to depend on someone to assist me before I can proceed with my journey to wherever I'm going to. But then there are still areas that I can easily navigate with my guide, my guide cane. So I would say that this issue of accessibility should be taken more seriously by ensuring that the roads, not just in Abuja, all over the country, are built in a way that visually impaired persons on wheelchair will be able to access without needing help from anyone. Because, like I mentioned earlier, disability has different disabling processes. One of those processes is the personality factor. Yes, it is true that some persons with disability do not have that confidence to really carry out things by themselves, just because they feel they are incapacitated. But apart from that, we still have the environmental factor. You want to go to a place, but the environmental structure does not give you permission to go to that particular place, or give you the room to thrive in that particular environment. So you become stranded. So it will compare you now with someone who has the same disability with you, but is living in an environment that is well accessible. You will observe that that person will be doing far better than yourself that is living in an environment that is not accessible. So you see, that environmental factor alone has further disabled the individual from carrying out his duty. We also have the attitudinal factor, attitudes of people. There was a day actually, I wanted to go somewhere really. So the bike guy stopped me by the road. But I didn't know that where I was standing was actually the middle of the streets where bikes and cars were entering. At the point I discovered that some will pass by my left, some will pass by my right. So I became conscious. I was like, are you sure I'm not standing in the middle of the road? But I was so hurt that day, and the reason is this: all the people that passed me on the way, none of them could even say, bros, you are standing at the middle of the road, please come to the side of the road. They all were passing me, those on foot, those on bikes, those in their cars, and all of that. And so I was like, am I the one thinking I'm standing on the wrong path? But someone should have said, why not stand by the side? Yeah. Until one bike guy came, and this one came so arrogantly, and he hit me with the handle of his bike. I said, leave the road, my friend. At that point, I was so hurt. I had to just try my best to move to the side of the road.
And you could see
that you were my cane. I wasn't holding my cane. I was standing with my cane. And I was like, I've really got to this point where people don't show concern about people anymore. You see someone standing on the middle of the road, and it's very dangerous for him. And you could even see him with a cane. You could not even say, okay, bros, why not just shift to the side of the road? So what I'm saying is the attitude of people towards persons with disability is becoming unbecoming, really, because probably they are thinking maybe he's just standing there to beg. Probably that's their intent, that's their mindset, their perception about me when I was standing on the road. But they never knew that I was stranded or I was kept there wrongly.
That's quite sad indeed.
That's very, very unfortunate. Really.
So these are the issues we're facing in the country, really. So I think we really need more awareness about these things.
Well, I guess that's why we're having this discussion, and that goes to our viewers as well. Next time you see
be nice and reach out,
or you see someone with disability, just be kind enough to
that's just all. They always assume that you want to collect money. That's the first impression they get when they see you standing. But in most cases, what these people need really is just probably an assistance to cross the road, or an assistance to get a bike or get a taxi, or better still, an assistance to get to the direction they are really going to. Not necessarily asking you to give them anything.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Lucky Pastor, to the program, and we hope to have you next time.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.